over any last 4-year time frame. I don't think anybody's ever lost money holding it for 4 years. So a pretty simple rule of thumb would be if I could borrow money for less than the expected return, and if it comes due more than 4 years out, then I think I'm pretty safe. So if you're going to loan me money at 6% interest for 6 days and I bought Bitcoin, might be some risk. 6 months, maybe some risk. 6 years. Well, I took a survey on Twitter of all my followers and I said, over the course of 7 years, do you think Bitcoin will go up on average 6 and 8% interest or more? It turns out that was our last secure debt financing. We borrowed money at 6 and 8% interest. So it's like 90% of them said yes. Okay, so if you're long Bitcoin, you think it's going to go up more than 6% a year, then would you borrow money at 6%? Sure. Would you borrow money at 2%? I mean, the truth of the matter is, if you went to anybody in any business in the world and you asked them, would you borrow $1 billion at 0% interest to invest in the business you're in? If the answer is no, then they must not believe in they probably should get out of the business, right? If you're not willing to invest $1 billion at 0% interest in the business that you're currently in, you're short, right? You're short the business, right? So in that case, the right answer is you ought to borrow the $1 billion and short. But if you don't have an opinion one way or the other, you probably shouldn't be in that business. And there's 10,000 businesses, Dan. I don't have an opinion on biomechanical engineering or nuclear engineering. I don't really know. I don't purport to be an expert in the 99.9% of the things in the world that I'm not an expert in. I just feel like you should focus upon the thing that you're going to work on. If you know that thing and someone is willing to give you favorable financing, and if you have a use of the proceeds, if I'm running a diner down the street and it's a nice diner and I got 6 employees and I'm really good at it and I love it, and you offered me $1 billion, maybe I don't need $1 billion of capital to upgrade my diner. It's not capital intensive. So there are some businesses where you can't use the capital. But Bitcoin is a business where you can use the capital. It's either going up or it's going down. If it works, it's going up. And if it's going up, then you would like to own as much of it as you can possibly own. So my view of the capital markets is if you can acquire capital at a reasonable cost of funds under the right conditions without onerous covenants, then yeah, you should go ahead and acquire that capital.
And I think you've also made the decision not to loan your Bitcoin out. Can you walk me through why that decision is the right decision? Because arguably you could loan it out, take a yield in, and maybe pay a dividend.
Okay, well, there's a couple of issues with it. First of all, as a publicly traded company, it takes the typical publicly traded company 3 to 6 months to get through the compliance and the regulatory and the accounting and the due diligence issues to just simply trust the counterparties to acquire and custody Bitcoin. Okay, so that's a big deal. And what do you get for that? Well, the last decade, you got 120% annualized return. In the last year, you got 250% annualized return. So I would say you get a pretty good return by going through the motions of acquiring and holding the Bitcoin. The offers with regard to yield are 4%, 5%, 8%. Okay, so you're talking about an order of magnitude less, and you're at least going to double the amount of effort, but you've got counterparty risk. So, what if you loan out $1 billion of the Bitcoin and somebody loses it all, right? So I think the counterparty risk is large. There's already complexity, right? There's DeFi complexity. Am I going to do a DeFi? Well, that's got a regulatory overhang, right? Maybe it's illegal. Maybe it's a securities problem. So no, not going to do that. There's a security problem. So what if I put it on on a DeFi blockchain and there's a rug pull and you lose it all. Okay. So there's security issue, there's a regulatory issue, there's an audit, and there's a legal and accounting issue. Okay. So, well, what if I do CeFi? Well, what if I put it with, one of the yield generating CeFi players, BlockFi, et cetera? Well, there's regulatory overhang there too. There's a question of compliance. My auditors would have to get comfortable with their auditors, right? My lawyers have to get comfortable that I've gone through the due diligence. Okay, how does one go through the due diligence process of trusting a counterparty right now? I think the right way to think of it, Dan, is like we're in year 1 or year 2 of commercial Bitcoin banking. Okay, we haven't even, like, what's the date? It's like the early part of August. Our first Bitcoin acquisition was August 11th or something like that. So we're not even 1 year into it. And I think when you get to 3 to 5 years into the world of Bitcoin banking, the security issues, the regulatory issues, the due diligence issues. Can you show me a Bitcoin bank that's taken $1 billion of Bitcoin and generated yield consistently for 10 years in a row without any kind of mishap? No. How about 5 years? How about 3 years?
Sounds like somebody with experience, right? You've been on both sides, right? So I get it. Yeah.
So the point really is you're taking 100 times as much risk and it's 10 times as complicated to get 5% more. So let me turn it around a different way. If I'm going to go ahead, like I wouldn't take 100x more risk, okay, to start with, right? That, like, as a fiduciary, that doesn't make sense. Let's assume that it wasn't any risk. It was just 10 times harder. Well, why would I divert the time of my legal team and my finance team to go jump through 10 times as many compliance, accounting, security, regulatory, and process hoops when I have other things I could do at the time? Why don't I just go and raise another $1 billion and buy Bitcoin that's been yielding 120% a year for a decade? Wouldn't it make a lot more sense to leverage up or to acquire more of the thing that's going up 120% a year than it is to divert everybody in order to get it to go up 123% a year with 100 times as much risk and 10 times as much complexity? So it's let me offer a different example. It's like, do you want to buy 100,000 acres in Vegas and just own it and you could do it overnight? Or do you want to carefully huddle with 100 architects and plan 150 hotels and the septic systems and all the traffic light systems and all the elevator systems of all the casinos and hotels and restaurants in Vegas